On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we preview KU's final exhibition game. What do we want to see, including players like Bryson, Kohl Rosario performing well to kind of back up or overcome what they did in the first exhibition game?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you to the everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We are free and available anywhere you podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of LOJ, we are breaking down the KU Fort Hays State second exhibition game. A little bit of a different version of a preview today, given the competition. We'll get into a bit of the scouting report of the opponents, but kind of what we want to see from Kansas in this game in their final preseason tune-up. We'll also get in segment 3, fun little interview with Kevin Flaherty of Pay Heed, who we're going to be comparing all the KU basketball players to barbecue. So stick around for that later on in the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. So KU takes on Fort Hays State Tuesday night game, their final exhibition game of the season, and then they'll play their season opener the following Monday against Green Bay, and then it gets really tough from there. You're playing at North Carolina, and then you've got all that, incredible slate of games after that with Duke and UConn and the Players era, and on and on and on, with some of the difficult games coming up in the non-con schedule for KU. And so this is kind of your final tune-up, and I think that is, in a lot of ways, like an opportunity for certain guys to back up what they did in the first game, certain guys to, perform better than what they did in the first game. And it's a game more so this one that I think you'll see more experimentation with the different rotations, with the different lineups, with who's out there, with whom. That'll just be a little bit different. That I don't know that you'll be able to take this game verbatim to be like, hey, they played this many minutes for this guy, this game, that's going to carry over to the regular season. A lot more experimentation, I think, in this game for Bill Self than, maybe some of the other games, right? And so, it is kind of your final tune-up to kind of figure things out for the last time. And maybe for guys who might not be playing as much in the regular season, maybe it's your last opportunity to prove that you should be playing more, or maybe just an opportunity to get in there a little bit more and try to make some memories and cool highlights for yourself, right? I'll be interested, are we going to see the same starting lineup for KU in this one that we saw in the Louisville game? I'm just kind of expecting we do, but would it be a shock if, with how good Bryson Tiller was, that would be the guy you kind of point to. Sure, you could say, would Jaden Dawson or Marco Jackson usurp Kohl Rosario, because Rosario didn't look that comfortable. But I don't know, if you're going that far out on a limb to start Kohl Rosario in the first game at Louisville, are you really changing after one game when he's going to have a good opportunity for a confidence booster against Fort Hays State? I wouldn't think so. So if you were going to make a change, I think it would just have to be because Bryson Tiller was that good. Are you interested in starting a two-big lineup with Tiller at the 4, with Flory at the 5, and then you're starting at that point Trey White at the 3 with Council and Peterson? I'm not really expecting it to happen, but it wouldn't be a shock with just how well he played. And I'll say this too, maybe in the back of Bill Self's mind, that's something he does want to eventually go to, and that is eventually starting lineup, especially if Tiller continues to play like that. But does it make as much sense to do in this game where you are going to have such a size advantage anyway, to where, do you want to see your guards play out in space a little bit more? I don't know. We'll wait and see. And like I said, whether Kohl Rosario is starting or not, which again, I'm expecting him to here, whether he's starting or not, he's going to play a lot of minutes and play a big role on this team. So wouldn't it behoove you to start him in this game and not have him lose some confidence by already pulling him from the starting lineup in a game where he should have a good opportunity to do well? Right. So I think from that standpoint, I'm not expecting it. But again, if it was Tiller, it would be probably more so just earned in that way. Now, what are some things I want to see from KU in this game against Fort Hays State? Again, this is a game that you should overmatch them, right? Just from talent, size, speed, not to take anything away. We're seeing kids transfer up from NAIAs who had great success, who are doing really well in the exhibition season. We've seen it before with kids transferring up from D2 that have had really well. I don't think people realize how good some D2s and NAIA schools are. But point being, this is one that you should still like completely overmatch them. And I do want to see Kohl Rosario show some stuff. He looked uncomfortable in the Louisville game, certainly shooting the ball. Now, you did see some of the moments of like the hustle plays. He got like a hustle offensive rebound. He made a couple plays where he was diving on the floor, like got a deflection or something on the defensive end. So you saw some of that stuff that endears him to Bill Self beyond just what he's going to bring as a shooter. But the shooting is obviously a key component to his game and how much you want him to be playing at Kansas, that even if he is a streaky shooter, like, I don't know, there's different, like some of the misses, he just didn't look comfortable, right? First game, maybe nerves. You want to see that, some of that out of him, right? Play with more confidence, hit some shots, see it start to go down, show your stuff a little bit more so you have a little more proof of concept going into the regular season. I would love to see kind of a slump buster game from Kohl Rosario, and yeah, go out there and hit a couple of threes in this one. I also want to see Bryson Tiller back it up, because as great as Bryson Tiller was in the first game, and as much as I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid and the hype about what he can be, it's until you start stringing them together, which we just haven't had the opportunity to see it, you don't really know. And so this is a game where, yes, it's not going to be as important taking away what you did in this game as the Fort Hays State game or as the Louisville game. Because you have such a size advantage in this one, you should dominate as well. So I want to see Tiller back it up, and that is the thing with young players, with freshmen, and he's a redshirt freshman, is the consistency aspect. Can you be consistent too? Then it's just like another level that you're going to be able to come into the game with. So I want to see Tiller back it up and show some more strong flashes to further believe that not just like, this dude can be a key player on this team, but like he does have a future in the NBA, right? I want to see some other players hit some threes. It was the Darren Peterson show. It was awesome to watch. He was hitting a bunch of threes. And obviously, like, yes, I want to see more Darren Peterson in this game, because we're not going to get that many games of Darren Peterson in a Kansas uniform. So soak everything up that you possibly can from the games you're going to get from him, right? Absolutely. But in the Louisville game, there weren't a ton of made threes outside of Darren Peterson. And so I want to see some other players hit that, right? That goes back to Kohl Rosario, but it goes beyond to some other players. I want to see some other players step up and hit some threes, just kind of show that, hey, you have some other guys who can be able to step up, because really through the Louisville game, the late night in the fog, which still is a small sample size, outside of Darren Peterson, not really been able to see much from three-point range overall as a team. I want to see the couple players maybe step up in half-court scoring. We'll get into the Fort Hays State scouting report. I'll say this. Even though Fort Hays State is not going to be one of the better teams KU will play, Fort Hays State actually, like, they might actually be better than Green Bay, like legitimately, who you're playing in the season opener. If Green Bay is anything like they were last year, Fort Hays State is a better team, like legitimately. And the area that Fort Hays State is better at is the defensive end of the ball. They've been the number one point allowed per game team in D2 the last 2 years. So they're going to play a grind. They play more of a slower style, but they play good defense. And for Kansas offense that I at times will have questions, who are the half-court scorers besides Darren Peterson? You actually might get a good opportunity to learn a little bit about that in this game. So I want to see a little bit of that, who steps up and figures that stuff out. And then, just seeing some of the different lineups, seeing some of the different rotations. Like I said, it's not going to be the be-all, end-all in terms of who's playing how many minutes and how that carries over. But certainly, it'll be another piece of the puzzle, so to speak, that you add on with the Louisville game. It just gives us another data point to go to, and then we can have our final minutes and rotation and starting lineup projection before the start of the season heading into that first game with Green Bay. Let's get to our opponent scouting report, what Kansas needs to do well, some interesting things that they could do that challenge Kansas, or possibly could, make certain things a little bit more of a known for Kansas to come away from this game. Let's get all to that next, and then a little what KU players are, what barbecue foods, that to conclude on with Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of LOJ is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. We just had our biggest takeaways from the KU State game and a KU State recap over the weekend. We had a KU Louisville recap over the weekend. So make sure to subscribe to the show and check those out if you haven't already. Thank you to everydayers who already did. Okay, Fort Hays State comes into this one. Like I said, I actually think this is a better Fort Hays State team than, at least on paper. We'll see. Year 2 with Doug Gottlieb at Green Bay. Like, I don't know a ton on the roster yet. I haven't started looking into Green Bay. I'm sorry on that. But preseason, Green Bay is 324th on KenPom. Texas A&M Corpus Christi, who will be the game after North Carolina, is 266th. There's a chance, because some of the best D2 teams, I'm not saying they would be top 50 in the country, but some of the best D2 teams are better than a lot of low majors. And so there's a chance Fort Hays State is not one of the even 2 worst teams that you play on your schedule this year, given the fact that this is a team that made it to the Division II tournament in the D2 NCAA last year, 22-10 a year ago. Now they do replace some key players, so there's a chance this is the worst team you play, because I don't know, it'll just depend what they're replacing with. But they won the MIAA tournament. That's a very difficult conference win. Washburn was a team who made it all the way to the I don't know if it's called Final Four at the D2 level, but the national semifinals, and they ended up winning the MIAA tournament, not Washburn. Washburn won the regular season. But then Fort Hays State made the Division II tournament. It was the 9th appearance for them under their head coach, Mark Johnson. He's in his 25th year. And they added some interesting transfers. Now, they have 8 returning players, but most of them are more role players. Only 1 returning starter. Kyle Grill averaged 11.6 points per game. He was an all-conference honorable mention pick a season ago, but a lot of returning role players, the 1 returning starter, some interesting transfer additions for them. They added a transfer addition who's a former local Lawrence kid. They added a transfer addition from Northwest Missouri State, who obviously was the spot of Ben McCollum. I'm not sure if they've been keeping up similar to where they were before he or since he left, but they were picked 2nd in the media poll, 4th in the coaches poll for the MIAA coming into the year, which would indicate that, they have relatively high hopes again to possibly make it to the Division II national tournament. 4 strengths for them. Fort Hays State led Division II in points allowed per game last season and the year before. Last year, they gave up just 59.9 points per game. They do play at the slowest tempo. So that'll be something interesting that in an exhibition game, when you want to get as many reps as possible, that's kind of the beauty of the Louisville game. You're not going to get as many reps in this game. Now, the plus side of it is it'll give you practice, whereas Louisville gave you practice against tempo, against teams who press, against teams who pace and space. This will give you more against an execution team, against a team who does want to slow it down, because you're going to face teams with different tempos throughout the year. So I think it actually works out that KU gets 2 very different flavors in the exhibition season. They do avoid turnovers, or again, part of this is taken off of last year, different personnel, but same type of system. Just 9.3 turnovers per game last season. So very good there. They were the 86th percentile in Division II in turnover rate offensively. They're also in the 91st percentile in defensive rebound rate last season. So a very good defensive rebounding team. And then they were really good at corner threes. Overall from 3, they were solid, 35.5%, solid, not like, elite, but solid. But on corner threes, they were elite. 42% last year on corner threes. Again, different personnel, but maybe that's something they teach. Maybe that's part of the system. So certainly something to keep an eye on from Fort Hays State in this game. 4 weaknesses for the Tigers coming into this one. Athleticism difference. I don't know. They might be an athletic D2 team, but when you compare them to Kansas, who I think is going to be one of the more athletic D1 teams, you would think Kansas has an athleticism differential there. The height difference. The tallest player for Fort Hays State is 6'9". Then they have a 6'8" player, and then everyone else is 6'7" or smaller. They do have good positional size kind of throughout, especially, at the D2 level. I call NAIA games. And so if you have versatile guys who are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", that really plays and does really well, because a lot of times if you are a 7-footer, you're going to the D1 level. That can be one of the differences there. They're really good basketball players, but that can be one of the differences there. You are going to have the height advantage. and the length with Flory and Tiller and Bia and stuff like that. And then, for Forte State, they're not really a team that scores in the fast break. They don't crash the offensive glass. I do think both of those are schematic things for them. I think both of those are, hey, we don't want to send numbers at the glass. We don't want to because we want to just send those guys back to defend in transition and not give up transition points. So that becomes actually an interesting matchup and something we can find out from Kansas, who I think is going to be a good transition scoring team. Can you still score on a team who puts numbers back in transition? And then with them not crashing the offensive glass, you want to see KU dominate on the defensive glass after not doing so against Louisville. But they also don't score in the fast break, just Forte State. So that's more of kind of a tempo thing, wanted to keep it down. And then the last thing here is their overall offense, just 66 points per game last season. They had low O rating numbers. They weren't the best offense in the country. They were the best defense. So that's kind of things there. Now, player to watch for them, Juju Ramirez. He was a former Bishop Seabury player and they would have won the state title. I feel very confident saying that. I think they were undefeated. Maybe they had one loss to like an upper level team. It was the COVID year, and they had an awesome team. If you saw some of those Bishop Seabury games when Juju and some of those other guys were there, really, really good team. And he ended up going to like prep school, I think his last year of high school. And he was at St. Anselm last year. He averaged 12 points per game. He's a good player, kind of he's listed at 6'9", so he's grown since when I last saw him at Bishop Seabury. But he's kind of like a point forward type. Like he can handle a little bit. He can slash. He can score. He can shoot it a little bit. Like good player who actually, if he is playing the 5 for them at 6'9", and I don't know if he'll be playing the 4 or the 5. I think at Seabury he was playing the 4. But that'll be kind of a fun matchup because if you're KU's 5, you have to defend in space again, which is kind of similar to the Louisville game, certainly. All right, we're going to finish things up here with shifting gears, having a fun conversation. We caught up with Kevin Flaherty of Pay Heed, who joined us on Big 12 Media Days last week, and we compared all the KU basketball players to different meats of barbecue. Kevin loves his barbecue, so we'll get to that next and have a little fun to finish. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back. I don't know how you couldn't be more excited. College basketball is back. We got NBA and NHL going on. Everything is going on. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, wherever you're going, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets sometimes can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, price jumps at checkout. That's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. The easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And with Game Time too, you can see what your seat view looks like. So you're not being surprised by, are these, do I have an obstruction in front of me? Is this a bad angle? You see it right away, so you know what you're getting into. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets to whatever you're going to, because October, November, awesome sports months. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE again for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
All right, I'm here with Kevin Flaherty. Does great work with Pay Heed Podcast. You've probably seen him on Twitter. Always does great stuff with KU. But one of the things that you might know or might not know about Kevin, he's a barbecue connoisseur. And I always trust Kevin with barbecue opinions, that's to say the least. So we're gonna kind of mix. We're in Kansas City for Big 12 Media Days. Why not mix the barbecue with the KU basketball? So I'm going to have Kevin compare foods of barbecue with KU basketball players. So I'm going to give you the meat.
All right.
You tell me what KU basketball player it is. Let's just start with the quintessential meat you think of with barbecue. I guess there's two, maybe if you're from Texas, you think brisket. I'm going to go with the ribs, though. Who is the ribs of this basketball team?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I do think ribs are the quote-unquote backbone, right? Of any barbecue meal. And so I'm going to go with Flory Badunga because I think that when you look at this roster and sort of the way that their bread is buttered, it's going to be on that defensive end. And so I think that Flory is going to be sort of the foundation behind that, having a guy that can defend pretty much anywhere on the court. You feel a lot better about him, getting out onto the perimeter and defending than you would, obviously, with Hunter Dickinson. He's a guy that can fight through screens, and he's a guy that you can also play drop with and is going to give you a lot of rim protection. He's going to rebound the basketball. And so all of those different things, I think the ribs of the Kansas Jayhawks meal are It's Flory Badunga.
Okay, pulled pork. Who is the pulled pork of Kansas basketball?
Pulled pork is one of those things where it's got a little bit of spice if you get it Carolina style,
maybe a little,
right? You got that
spicy
vinegar.
sauce.
You got that vinegar with it. That really brings out the pulled pork. And so I'm going to go with Melvin Council. I think that whole if you're not a dog, you're dog food. I think that pulled pork kind of fits him because he's going to kind of bring that extra edge that you want and have sort of that vinegar flavor to this team. I think he's a guy that opponents aren't going to particularly enjoy playing against when you look at the defense, the way that he's going to attack the rim on offense. I would say pulled pork probably is probably Melvin Council.
Okay, sausage, that's my wife's favorite for the different meats. And I think of places like Chef Jay, Harp, a lot of good places in the local area that are like customizing the sausage.
Yes.
So you can get creative with this one. Who's the sausage of KU basketball?
Yeah, I think the sausage is Trey White. And the reason that I say that is that, like you said, sausage can be anything. I went down to
They're like a pizza sausage before, blueberry.
They've had blueberry white cheddar is something that Harp does. They do taco sausage. I actually went down when I was in Austin when KU played down there. The very last time in Austin, went to a barbecue place out there. They had Frito sausage, and I kid you not, like it tasted like Fritos, and it was sausage. And so I think the versatility that Trey White brings, he's going to be a guy that fills in a lot of different blanks depending on what you need. And he's going to be a good rebounder. He's going to be a good defender. He's going to give them some shooting. He's going to give them some passing, some screen setting, all of those different things. And sort of sausage can kind of be what you want to make of it. And so I think Trey White kind of fits that mold a little bit.
Barbecue isn't just the meats, it's the sides, right? You can get different sides, mac and cheese, beans, I don't know. Do you have any comparison for if you want to pick a side to a specific player? Makes it a little more open.
Okay, so Chef Jay has a bacon and blue cheese potato salad. And potato salad's good typically, but it's also something that I think can really get elevated depending on what you do with it. And so when you look at that bacon and blue cheese potato salad, I'm going to go with Kohl Rosario because I think he's a guy that has upside, right? Like he comes in and you can see a role for him where he is a guy in the rotation, does some nice things, whatever. But there's also that upside to what Kohl Rosario could bring when you look at, hey, this is a guy that is really good in transition when he can get out. He's a guy that's going to be a big part of their shooting and whether that works out. And so I like Kohl Rosario as a guy because, again, potato salad by itself, not that it's bad, but it's got a role, right? But you can take it up another notch. And so I think Kohl Rosario is kind of that side.
Would you have somebody for like banana pudding? I feel like that's the classic barbecue dessert. I don't know who would be on that.
The funny thing about it is I don't do banana pudding. That's like one of those things that I don't do. So, and there aren't any KU players that. I was going to say there aren't any KU players that I particularly dislike. So I'm not going to mention anybody for that one.
I'm trying to think who I would give banana pudding to because pudding is one of those things that can be kind of boring. I think the banana spices it up.
Yeah.
And it's also something where it's like, I don't know, you think of that being like a home recipe that's brought down. So I think of somebody who maybe has been in the program a little bit longer. I don't know, maybe it's El Marco Jackson. You don't have a lot of options there. El Marco, feels like banana pudding is a polite dessert. Like it might be your grandma's recipe. I feel like El Marco Jackson's a very polite kid. He's got some potential to maybe add a Nilla wafer in there, give it a little crunch. El Marco's got a chance to, kind of jump up and have a big season this year.
I like that. I like that a lot for multiple reasons, but one of them is I think a lot of people sleep on dessert when they get barbecue. Like you get this big tray of meat.
Sleep by all the food
you get this big tray of meat, and sometimes you forget. Hey, you can also get dessert here, and so sometimes dessert gets forgotten. And I think El Marco Jackson's a guy that because he sat out last year, I think he's somebody that people are sleeping on a little bit when you look at this year's team, and so I do like that pick quite a bit because I do think
that
you
don't like banana pudding.
I do like El Marco. Not a banana pudding guy.
We didn't mention Darren Peterson.
Yes.
So do you have some sort of barbecue dish you would compare to Peterson?
My favorite bite in barbecue, burnt ends are not far down, but my favorite bite in barbecue, and it's hard to find a great one, especially in Kansas City, is a beef rib. And so, down in Texas, there are more places, but even then, it's a little more rare than sort of your standard barbecue fare. And so for me, when you're looking at the rareness, the uniqueness, the fact that, in my opinion, a beef rib is the best bite in barbecue, it's succulent. I'm not trying to say Darren Peterson's succulent, but his game is maybe succulent. But no, I think Darren Peterson is one of those guys that, is really going to hit in sort of a different level than your traditional fare for so many different reasons. And so, like a beef rib on your plate, I think he's going to stand out from the rest.
Love that. He is Kevin Flaherty. Where can everybody find your work on social media and with the Pay Heat Podcast? Just let everybody know.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter/X, I guess, at K Flaherty,
I still don't know what to call it.
KCSN, and then find my stuff throughout Kansas City Sports Network. We have the Pay Heat Podcast, obviously, with your good friend Nick Springer, and also do the Verbal Commitment Podcast, where we talk a lot about local high school prospects and high school football. So find me the
dude has a wealth of knowledge, so make sure you're checking him out. This is Locked On Jayhawks. I'm Derek Johnson.
All right, that's going to do it for our episode today of Locked On Jayhawks. Thank you to Kevin Flaherty for joining us. Thank you to you for listening or watching along. Don't forget you can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page, where you can like and subscribe to the show, and we'll be back at you to recap whatever happens in the KU exhibition game with Fort Hays State. See you next time for another edition of LOJ.